Alrighty, thank you, Erica. Let's see. All right, there we go. I can see that I'm making some noise here. Welcome once again to another exciting episode of Training Tuesdays here at Omni Update. Today, like Erica said, we're going to be talking about the new enhancements coming to LDP forms with the release of version 10.4, which we are all eagerly waiting for and are very excited for that release to come out. So without further ado, let's just kind of get into it here. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here really quick. We'll start off as usual with some PowerPoints, and then we'll spend most of our time in a live demonstration of everything else that we're going to be working on today. Okay, so today's agenda, we're just going to be covering pretty much line by line all of the enhancements that are coming to LDP forms. There's a lot of stuff that we're bringing in with this release when it comes to forms, so that's really exciting. We've got a couple new elements. If you're not sure, what these enhancements are, we'll cover them here. So we have two new form elements that we're going to be releasing, an instructional text element as well as a date time picker. We also have kind of enhanced all of the elements to give them the ability to have helper text as well as set any field as required. So before it used to only be a couple of the form elements you could mark as required. Now we can do it for all of our form elements. We've also brought in some enhancements to the general form settings panel, as well as a couple changes to how we're doing email messages, which I think will be a welcome addition for many people, especially those of you who are making really large forms and want to get that data. In addition to that, we also have just some basic improvements to the form submission screen as well, so we'll be showing those at the end. But of course, most of our time today is going to be spent as a live demonstration covering all of those new features. And then we'll wrap up with any Q&A that may not have come in already. So with regards to some of the new elements, the first one is a date and time picker. It'll let the user choose either a date or a time or both at the same time. It's useful for, choosing appointments or sign-in times, or if you're maybe wanting to request a campus tour, you want to say, hey, I'm available for this day, something along those lines. So that's going to be pretty helpful there. We also have the instructional text element, which will give you a mini WYSIWYG editor to get some formatted text into your form itself. And so this is entirely the entire purpose of this element is to just give the ability for data to be just shown on the form itself, to give your users some more instructions on how to submit the form, as opposed to requiring them to fill in data for this element itself. So this is really just for you to give information to your users when the form is displayed on the page. So when it comes to the general changes to form elements, you'll now see that we'll have this helper text field on all of our form elements, and this will just give you the ability to make a description for the field to, give them further instructions for a particular element. And we also have the ability to mark things as required. All of the form elements will now have that ability, including checkboxes, radio buttons, and some other elements that didn't have that beforehand. And then also when we go down to the form settings panel, we've got a lot of changes coming in this area, which is exciting. First of all, we can set success and failure messages to be a little bit more enhanced. So both the success message and the failure message can have formatted text now. Before, it was just simply a text box where you'd put in plain text. Now there's a mini WYSIWYG editor for both of them. And also you can have success messages instead of having a message just appear on the same page that the form was submitted on. You can now have it redirect your users to a particular URL, which is good. I know that a lot of people have been, for marketing purposes, wanting to have form submissions take you to a particular landing page or something once it's been submitted, so you can kind of track conversions. We now have that ability, so that's really exciting. And we also have, right under here before we check this out, we do have the submission button text as well. So you know how before you would always just have the submit button read submit. Now you can change what that text says. Now, a quick note about CAPTCHA. We have a lot of users at the end of our January Training Tuesday to talk about CAPTCHA. They had a lot of questions about how that was going to work. We are going to be including kind of some more features, a little bit easier functionality to include CAPTCHA onto forms inside of OU Campus. I wanted to kind of just, I answered this question specifically for a couple users who had this specific question in January, but just so everyone knows, a quick note about CAPTCHA. In case you didn't know already, all of the forms that we have in OU Campus by default have the honeypot anti-spam technique built into it. So it's a security feature that will include essentially another form element that's blank, but it's hidden from the page itself. So if like a robot or something is crawling your page and wants to kind of do a fake submission of your form or try to spam the form, they'll fill in the honeypot element as well as the form itself, and OU Campus recognizes that if the honeypot element has been filled in, it's been performed by a robot or some sort of spammer, and so it will reject those submissions. So that's already built in without any user interaction. That's just always there. If you do want to include CAPTCHA to your forms in addition to that, we do have that capability. All forms of CAPTCHA are supported, so if you want to do CAPTCHA 2, CAPTCHA 3, or even if that exists, reCAPTCHA, all of those are totally supported. But if you do want to have CAPTCHA, it is accomplished through a small professional service. So if you are interested in getting CAPTCHA implemented on the forms for your site, I would suggest reaching out to us at support.omniupdate.com, and we'll get you in touch with our professional services department in order to get that accomplished. And so if you do have CAPTCHA implemented on your site, you will have the ability to have this include CAPTCHA checkbox in the form settings, and it'll look something, oh, looks like the image didn't show up there, but essentially if we, oh, there it is. Huh, that's really strange. My animations in PowerPoint are deciding to not work out very well today. But if we look over here, it'll have a little checkbox that just says include CAPTCHA. But if you haven't implemented it through that professional service, then that checkbox won't appear, so you won't need to worry about it. Anyways, so moving on to some more enhancements to form settings, we can now also include submitted values for your emails. So if you've used this before, you know that when you make emails, you've had the ability always to include the submitted values for that form into your email messages. So maybe you send yourself an email that just says, hey, this form has been submitted. Here's just a quick at-a-glance of all the data that was submitted for that. But if you have a really long form, you had to do it manually, and that can be a really tedious process. So what we've done now is we've just added this checkbox that you hit the checkbox, and all of the submitted values for your entire form will automatically be included into that email that you're potentially sending yourself. And Lisa McLaurin had a question regarding this, and she's asking, does it include the labels with the data? And the answer is yes, it does include the labels with the data. We'll be actually doing an example of this today, so you'll be able to see it in action. And she responds, yay, thanks. I know, I'm just as excited as you are on that. So there's our include all submitted values functionality. And then finally, kind of wrapping up with the last enhancement we've done, we've kind of enhanced the form submission screen as well. So once you've submitted your form, you can also check out what the database actually has been submitted, what data has been submitted to it. So you can now delete multiple submissions at once. Before you'd have to do either all of them or one at a time. So now we have these check boxes where you can delete more than one at one time, and also the columns that list the order that list the actual data that's been submitted will be arranged to reflect the order in which the elements have been presented in the form. Before they were just sorted alphabetically, which might have been jarring for some people. So now it's going to be in the order that they're shown in the form itself. So hopefully that'll be a little bit easier to understand. So that's pretty much all of the elements themselves and all of the enhancements that we're talking about. So now we're going to kind of just quickly talk about how to get these. So of course, forms are a part of LDP, so Live Delivery Platform. If your institution does not have Live Delivery Platform already, then obviously none of this necessarily really applies, but hopefully most of you who are on this call are probably already have LDP and are wanting to just learn more about it. So the enhancements that we're going to be showing today, once 10.4 is released, you need to have your server-side module, or SSM, to be upgraded before these elements and all this new stuff is actually going to appear inside OU Campus for you. Luckily, this is pretty much all done by Omni Update, so we don't need you to do anything necessarily, but we do need to have you email us to schedule an appointment so we can upgrade your server-side module in order to enable these features. So email support@omniupdate.com. We're going to be serving these upgrades on a first-come, first-served basis, so email us as soon as you can to kind of get your spot in line. And the SSM upgrade, it should only take a couple hours, but of course we have to kind of stagger them out and do them in order in which we receive them. So that's kind of step one. First of all, get your SSM upgraded, and that will actually show these new form elements and things like that in OU Campus. Now the second part of it is to get those elements to work once you've placed your form on the page. And to get that part to happen, we also need to update the XSL files that are in your site in order to render the form on your page appropriately. So once again, this is another thing that the team here at Omni Update, either the professional services team or perhaps just our normal frontline support staff, are able to do for you. This one is a little less cut and dried. Everyone's SSM is the same, but everyone's XSLs are custom built for that institution. So in terms of how long the XSL upgrades may take, that's going to vary depending on what our evaluation of your XSL currently looks like. So once again, this is just another thing where you email us at support@omniupdate.com. We're going to try to do this at the same time that we're upgrading your server-side module, but just in terms of how long that entire process will take on a per institution basis is going to vary just depending on what your XSLs currently look like. So email us, schedule a time, we'll take a look at what your site currently has, make an evaluation for how long it's going to take, and then we kind of take the process from there. So just make sure that's what you need to know. 10.4 is released. Once 10.4 is released, email us, get your server-side module upgraded, and also get your XSLs upgraded to get everything to work appropriately here. So if you have more questions about this or just need to kind of revisit that information, we've got a link on our support site right on the home page that takes you to this 10-4-important info page, and this will give you all of that same information in case you need to reference that again in the days to come. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go into my test environment to just show you another preview, another teaser Tuesday, if you will, what these new features are going to look like once 10.4 is released. So let me just hop into here. Got my test environment. Let me just log in. First, I got to enter in the right password. Okay, so I'm just going to go right to the Asset Manager here, and I'm just going to go ahead and create a form, and we'll just walk you through the process. You know, if you haven't really used LDP forms too much, this will be a good chance for you to just kind of see how the process works. If you've already a pro with making forms, then you'll get to see all these new features that we're talking about, so that's really exciting stuff. So of course, the first time when I make a form, let's just call this Quest Info form. We'll give it the tags of training. I'll move in. If I wanted to edit my access settings, I could. The access group determines who has the ability to edit this asset from within the Asset Manager. And then the Available To group is the group of users who can actually place this asset on a page. So I'll just leave those both to everyone for right now. And then we're going to get into our meat and potatoes, the Elements panel. This is where we're actually going to build out our form itself. So let's just go ahead, and first off, we'll start with one of our brand new form elements. As we can see, we've got DateTime Picker over here to the left and Instructional Text. Let's just click and drag instructional text here at the top, and there we go. We have my new element. So let's fill this out really quickly. And this is just going to be kind of like a little heading to the top section of the form, so I can just give my users a little bit more information about what kind of stuff I want from them in this little phase of my form. So I'll just first ask for demographic information. And of course, I can add some formatting to this. Maybe I'll center all of this text and then I'll bold demographic information. That's the benefit of having a mini WYSIWYG editor. We can add a little bit of formatting here to our text instead of just having it be plain. And when I make instructional text, the name right here is just going to be pre-filled in here, and we don't need to really worry about this because once again, there's no opportunity for a user to add any data to this field, so we don't actually necessarily need to care about what this name is because it's not going to really show up in our data table. So I've made my instructional text. I'm going to ask for a couple single-line text fields here, pretty simple. If I go up to my first single-line text field, I get to add my label. You'll also notice that we have a little bit more helpful helper text inside of OU Campus itself. So in case you were at some point in the past worried about or confused about the difference between label and name, now we have a little bit more description here to make that a little bit more clear for you guys, which is really great. So let's go ahead and just for my label here, I'll just ask for this person's full name. And I'll shorten my name field just to something a little easier to understand, like name. I've got my new field right here for helper text. So this is going to essentially place text right below this field on the form itself. It's pretty much going to look like this. What I've got highlighted here is that's essentially the helper text for this helper text field, and whatever I put inside here is going to be the helper text for my what is your full name label on the actual form itself. If I wanted to, I could add some default text here. And I can also mark this as required. And if I mark a field as required or I have some sort of validation enforced for this, then the failure message text box will appear right here. And I'll just mark it as this field is required because I've already told them to give us their first and last name right there. Moving on to the second single line text field, I'm just going to ask for their email address here. I don't even think this needs helper text actually. I will mark this one as required, and I will also set validation. We have 3 different types of validation. This hasn't changed from what we currently have over into 10.4. You can validate for an email address, a minimum length in characters, or you could use a regular expression to enforce some sort of validation there. But let me just go ahead and validate for an email address and say this field is required. There we go. Cool. So this kind of concludes my easy demographic information. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do one more piece of demographic information. I'm going to add a drop-down message, and instead of dragging and dropping, I can also just click the green plus, which will just append that to the bottom of my field, or bottom of my form. I'll ask what year in school they are. Oopsies. Just as a rule of thumb, I almost just forgot there, but don't include spaces or special characters inside of your name field. Otherwise, it will not work. And I will add my items here. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and then I'll add 5th year or older. We'll go there. Once again, this is something that's new. We used to not be able to mark drop-down menus as being required, but now we can. So let me hit that, and then failure message will once again appear there. And we can also set a little preview right here just to see what it's going to look like, which is pretty nice. I'll keep it at that. Okay, so my demographic information is done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another instructional text element, which is just going to say campus tour information. Bold that, center it. Tell us more about when you'd like to see a campus tour. There's that. Once again, don't need to really change the name of this. And then let's do a set of checkboxes. What do you want to see on campus? Sites on campus will be my name. Oh, hey, this is a good opportunity to answer a question that's come in. So Mike is asking, is your form saved as you go, or would all of this content be lost if I left the page? At this point right now, I have not saved the form officially. So if I did, lose internet connection or navigate away from this page, my form would be lost. One thing you could do is I could potentially click the Create button as I go, midway through my form creation process. Actually, you know what? Now that I think of that, that wouldn't even work because I have to add success messages and failure messages and some other required elements of my form before I can actually create it. Because essentially at this point, when I'm building out the form for the first time, I need to kind of give it all of its basic required information such as success messages and failure messages and things like that, as well as building out my form before it can be successfully saved to the staging server. If you were concerned about it being lost through some, maybe your internet connection is really spotty that day, maybe one thing you could do would be just to give it that basic information, add like one form element and fill out the rest of it, create the form itself, and then just kind of go back in there and then continue to add form elements to it, because then you would be able to more easily save as you go. But it boils down to the fact that normally when you're making the form for the first time, you pretty much have to do it all in one fell swoop. So going back to my checkboxes here, let's see. I'll add some helper text to this one again. Of common sites on campus, let us know which ones you're interested in seeing. And we'll just add a couple of random items here. The Quad, Galena Stadium, science facilities. Let's see, what else? Dorms, that's important. Always good to look at your housing. And then finally, oh man, on-campus dining. Okay, we got another question. This one's from Heather, and she's asking, can a user pick more than one item in the drop-down? No, drop-down menus are meant to function very similarly to radio buttons in that you can only select one of the options, but we do have another option called multi-select right here, which gives you the ability to have pretty much a giant panel listing all of your options, and then you can select more than one item inside of that panel. So you can, control-click or shift-click to select a multitude of options inside of there. So we got radio buttons and checkboxes inside the form elements, but then we have drop-downs, which essentially function the same as radio buttons. They're just displayed differently. And then multi-select functions the same as checkboxes, but they're just displayed differently. So I filled out, some nice little check boxes here. And then the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a date and time picker. Obviously, it's our other form element that we want to display today, so I'll make sure I showcase it here. So inside the date and time picker, I'm just going to ask, when do you want to tour on campus? Tour date. Campus tours are available March through May from 10 a.m. to, 4 p.m. There we go. So I'm going to have a date and time picker on this. I could change it to just simply giving me a date picker or just simply a time picker, but I want both. So I'm going to set that right there. And if I wanted to, I could also set a default date and time. But I'll keep that blank for right now. So it'll just, I think, pre-fill with whatever today's date and time is, and then users can obviously change it up later. And then I'll also mark this as required as well, because, if my entire purpose is to try to get proposed dates and times for campus tours and I don't make it required, some people might not do that. So that's kind of a problem there. So at this point, I'm pretty sure that we've filled out a pretty decent form. We've used all of the new elements and showcased all the new features. So let's move down to email messages. I'm going to send out 2 email messages, and these are going to be triggered immediately after the form has been submitted. The first email I'm going to send is actually going to be sent to myself because I want to be notified every time my form has been submitted. So inside the to field, I'll just put my email address, or actually, there we go. The from field can be whoever you want it to be. It doesn't necessarily matter. No reply right there. Then we got another question from Jin. Actually, we've got 2, one from Sarah and one from Jin. Jin has a question, and she's asking, is there a predefined data set that we can use in the dropdown, i.e. state names or birth years? Yes, you totally can. All of the predefined data sets that you could use are, depending on what you've defined inside of your datasets.xsl file. It's a file that's stored inside your _resources folder that will list all of the data sets that you could possibly do. And then if you want to query one, all you do is you would put in the advanced field, advanced, and then you'd say dataset equals, and then whatever the name of the dataset you want to do. So like maybe states or something like that, and then end with a semicolon. So the functionality for that has not changed from what we currently have to 10.4. This has always been available. If you don't have a datasets file inside of your _resources folder, this is something you could email support@omniupdate.com about. We have kind of a standard one that we could send you that you could upload into your site, and we can kind of give you some more information about that. And Sarah's got a question about the date and time picker. She's wondering, is there a way to narrow down the time or dates that people can choose in the picker, e.g. Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or something like that? To my knowledge, I'm not quite sure about that. I know that the default one that we have will give you all ranges of dates and times. So what I'm going to do, Sarah, I'm going to follow up with our development team about that. There may be a way to potentially modify the JavaScript file that actually renders the date and time picker for that to be possible, but I'm not quite sure. So I'll follow up with you as soon as I can, and since you've registered for this training Tuesday, I've already got your email, so I can just email you from there. So going back to my email messages here, I'm sending an email to myself. It's from some random email address. My subject is going to be form submission. And then I'm just going to say, someone submitted your request for information form. And under normal circumstances, what I would have done before the release of 10.4 is I would have had to go down, and inside the body field, I would have had to do double curly brackets and then start writing in whatever is in the name field for my forms. So for example, in this one, it's sites on campus. I would have to go in and manually add all of these to get that data to appear inside of my form. But now we have this little checkbox that says include all submitted values, and so instead of having to do it manually, I can just click this checkbox and it's going to automatically pull in the labels and the values for every single one of my my form elements there. So we've got some excitement there. We've got a couple of people dancing. One person saying that's excellent. There we go. So I know it's really great. I know that a lot of people have been really excited for this to be included in there. And Ed, yes, I did see that you are interested about the same answer as Sarah is, so I'll make sure that I will make sure to send you an email with that result as well. Okay, so my first email is done. I've included all the submitted values with one simple click of a checkbox. How amazing is that? My second email I'm going to send to the user, the person who actually submitted the form, so I can then just do some common courtesy and thank them for submitting our form there. Amy Hutchings has another question. She's asking, could you add the double curly brackets with the variable submitted form as a subject line? And I absolutely could. If I wanted to, I could change it to something like name submitted your request for info form. And it would absolutely work. Whatever they put inside the name form element will show up in my subject message. Yep, we can use these double curly brackets in any of the 4 fields, to, from, subject, or body. But going back, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to grab that person's email. So I'll just type double curly brackets email, and it's going to send whatever they've put in there to that email address. From, once again, no reply. And then I'll say name, comma, thank you for submitting the campus tour form. We'll get back to you soon about a proposed campus tour date and time. Many thanks. Brandon, Director of Admissions. I'm in the business of giving myself fake titles today, so I'm the Director of Admissions. So there we go. I've now configured my second email message. Obviously, I'm not going to give them all of their submitted values back. That would be kind of silly. But now my email messages are done. So now we're moving into the final phase of building out this form. So down here under form settings, this is where I'm able to set my success message and my failure message. So under normal circumstances, when you submit a form, you will, the form will kind of spin for a second, and then if it's successful, the form will disappear, the form itself, and a success message will appear in its place that, says whatever you want it to say inside of this mini WYSIWYG editor right here. If it fails, then the form will still be there, and the failure message will appear at the top of the form, where with all of the exact failure messages that are in the elements themselves will then show up right next to that particular element. So I could do that right there. Oh, you know what? Before we get too much into form settings, we've got another question about emails. Rich is asking, can you add multiple emails by a comma? And actually, Rich, you're close. Instead of a comma, you use a semicolon. So if I wanted to, I could send myself an email to my work email and my personal one. Now you all have my personal email, so go ahead and send me all the spam messages. But I just split them with a semicolon, and that will work. But if you use a comma, it won't work out. So make sure semicolon, not comma. Thank you for that reminder. That's a very good question. And Lucy's asking, once updating the SSM and the XSL, will we be able to use the new features to edit existing forms? That's something I'm also not 100% sure on. I will follow up with our development team to get the answer for you about that, Lucy, and I will email you as soon as I hear back from them. Good question. So I'm going back to my success and failure messages here, but what I want to do just to highlight this feature, we already kind of know how success messages work. Let's go ahead and change the success message to a URL redirect. So when I submit the form, instead of it pushing me or just making the form disappear, but I'm at the same page, I could be redirected to a new page. Let me just choose a URL or just a random page inside of my my directory here. Let's just go to the library page. No real reason. I just don't have like a predefined splash page. But if you wanted to, you could have a specific form submission splash page inside your site that you will only use to have be the redirect location for form submissions, and then you could put some sort of like tracking code or tracking pixel on there to track how many people are submitting your form and just kind of get a good analytics for your conversion rate and things like that too. Okay, and so Heather, I also see your question, so I will include you both in the date picker email as well as the updating existing forms question as well. And also Luke, I will get those for you there as well. And Stephen, okay, it looks like we've got a lot of emails today, but that's great. That's great. A lot of people asking the same questions. That's really good to know. Okay. So now let's just use the mini WYSIWYG editor to put my failure message in there. And we'll use the handy dandy WYSIWYG editor to add some bulleted lists. So there we go. I'll bold this too, because it's very important to know that their submission failed. Okay. So it looks like we've got a couple more people who want to be included on the emails. That's great. I will make sure to get that information all there for you. And we have another question from Pat about the Save Results in Database option. I will get to that in just a little bit, so sit tight, Pat. And if you have some more questions once we kind of cover that, I will make sure to ask or answer those specifically for you as well. Okay, so the Save Results in Database checkbox is really simple. It's pretty much if you have this checkbox on, data will be sent to the database and be saved. If you don't have this checkbox selected, then you will still get your emails and everything when the forms are submitted, but no results will actually be saved in the database. In terms of where that information is stored, we set up a database when you install LDP that's essentially associated with your instance of OU Campus. So it's something that we set up and kind of manage, but also at the same time, you can view that data. You don't have to go into the database itself. You can view the data for your forms directly within the OU Campus interface, which is something that I will be showing. I'll be showing after we test this form out and check it out. So at this point, we've made our form. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and hit Create. It's going to save my form asset, and I'm going to publish it in order for it to be usable on a page. And now let's go ahead and go onto a page, such as this Request Information page, and let's go ahead and place our form. So I'm just going to go ahead into my WYSIWYG editor, choose Insert Asset. There's my Request Info form. It's just going to appear as a little placeholder right here. As soon as I click Save and Exit, we're going to get a nice little preview of what the form looks like. So as we can see, since all of the stuff, including the new elements, are appearing appropriately, we can know for sure that the XSLs have been updated. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is publish this page out and view it on the live site so we can do a test submission and just see how that works out. So I've got my page, and I'm just going to start filling out my form. I'm going to break it at first to not get a correct form submission, and then we will redo it and have it go successfully. So my full name, there's my instructional text, or my instructional text element is right here, but here's my helper text for the full name element, so it's right there. My email address, I won't fill this one in for right now. I will have that one break. I will say that I'm a 5th year or older. Here's my second piece of informational text field. So obviously you can kind of see it splitting the form into kind of 2 pieces so we can get some more information about the specifics for each section. So I want to see the library, the quad, dorms, and the science facilities. I don't really care about on-campus dining or the Galena Stadium for right now. And then when I want a tour on campus, as soon as I click into the element, there's my date and time picker showing up for me very beautifully there. So if I wanted to, I could just select maybe April 12th on a Tuesday. Actually, let's do it the next training Tuesday, which will be April 26th, and we will just have it start at 11 a.m. right there. So I'm going to tour on campus when the next training Tuesday is going on. So there we go. And then, once again, I've got more instructional text right there. So at this point, I filled out my form almost completely, but my email address is empty, so it will actually, you know what, I'm just going to do ASDF and see what happens, because it should validate for an email address, so I have no @ symbol, so it's not going to work. Let's go ahead and see what we do when I click Submit. It's going to try to submit, and we get some failure text. So here's my failure message for the form itself. As we can see, my bulleted list and my bolding has shown up, so we know that the Mini WYSIWYG editor is working. And also, considering that my email address is failed, this little failure text specifically has showed up for this one right now. So let's just fill this out correctly now. Now I hit submit and it should work out, and since I had the URL redirect selected, it will probably, or it should hopefully, and it will, take me to whatever URL I selected in my form itself. So as soon as I click submit, there we go. I have now been redirected to my library page, which indicates to me that the form was successfully submitted and everything worked out. So while we wait for my emails to come in, just to kind of show you what the email part looks like, we have one more question coming in from Lucy. And, oh, okay, it looks like this is the same question that Lucy asked earlier. It's just popping up again because Erica answered. Thank you, Erica. But yes, I will make sure to be following up the development team, and that will get that answer squared away for all of us here. So let me see, I'm just hopping into my other monitor here to see if I have my emails arriving yet. And it looks like it hasn't showed up. Oh, there we go. I got one showing up. So let me just bring this over into my other field here. So as we can see, this is my field. It was sent to me from notereply@omniupdate.com. Whatever I filled into the name field right there, submitted my request for info form. Here's my little piece of information that I put in the body text right there, but then you notice how I hit the checkbox. I didn't have to do any of this all by myself. So it looks like, going back to, there was a previous question about, Lisa's question, whether it includes the labels of the data. It looks like I was just slightly mistaken. It doesn't include the labels. It just includes the value of whatever the name was, and then the actual value that was put in for that column. So it's close. It doesn't put in the labels itself, but it puts in the names. So close enough. If you've named your names well enough, it should still, get the point across. So there's my name, there's my email, the year in school that I was, and then also the sites of campus. And then it looks like there's a line break issue there. There's my tour date and the timing. So we have another question from Rich. He was asking, is there a way to style an HTML email? To my knowledge, I believe you can include HTML tags inside the email messages form, the email messages kind of field of text, which will then apply that styling to your email that you're sending out. If you want to do something super complex, at a certain point it might not work well, but if you just want to kind of include some, simple bolds or italicizes or maybe an unordered list or something in there, you should just be able to put those HTML tags into that field and it should work out. But always good to make sure that you kind of test that out. But I know that in the past, even currently with the way that we do it in OU Campus before the release of 10.4, we've been able to include HTML tags into the email and have it show up and work. So there's my first email. I also got my second email to show up. Yeah, I don't need to worry about that. Here's my second one. This is the one that was sent to the person who actually submitted the form, which was the same email. There's my subject message. Once again, it's from no reply. There's my name, and thank you for submitting. It has now shown up. So I got both of my emails. Everything worked out great. Pretty much the last step that we have here is just to go back into OU Campus and review the database entry that was created when my form was submitted successfully. So if I go back into Content Assets, if I hover over the asset in question, we've got this review menu right here. And if we go down to form submissions, this is where we're able to view the form submissions that have actually been submitted to the database. Now, if I didn't have the Save Results in Database entry selected, I would see nothing inside of this screen. I would have only gotten the emails. But since I did, and I did save a database entry, it is now showing up right here. As we can see, we have one form submission. We can see its ID, which is just the number, the order in which they were submitted. There's my name, there's the email, what year in school I was, the sites on campus that I wanted to see, as well as the date of the tour that I selected. And then we also see the date and time it was submitted, as well as the IP address that it was submitted from. Now, you'll notice that we don't have the instructional text elements in here because obviously we can't get information back on those. So it makes sense that we wouldn't have that cluttering up our form submission screen. And if I wanted to, I could export all of this data to a CSV. So kind of going back to your question, Pat, there's pretty much no need to go into the database directly with forms in OU Campus. You can just go straight into it from the OU Campus interface. And if you do need to have that data carried with you somewhere else, you can go ahead and just export it, and there we go. Now, if I wanted to, I could select this submission and I could delete it from the database right here. And if I had multiple, I could use those checkboxes to select multiple at the same time and delete them there. Or I could just hit the big red button and purge it all at once by hitting delete all, which would, of course, clear out the entire database. But at this point, we have pretty much covered all of the new features that are coming with version 10.4 there, which is very exciting. At this point, I'm just going to go back and wrap up with some Q&A. If you do have any more questions about, oopsies, let's swap that. There we go. If you do have any more questions about what we've covered today, feel free to go ahead and ask them. Looks like we do have one question from Chris, and he's asking, so can only those with access to the forms be able to review their specific submissions, or does anyone with access to the submission screen see all forms? Chris, that answer is going to be partially dependent upon the access group that you have set for that form in particular. So anyone, first of all, you need to have access to the asset management screen. So anyone who's a level 4 and above by default has access to that. And if you've, pared that down with more access settings, of course, then it's going to be a fewer group of users. And then we have to look at the access settings for the specific asset itself. So if one form just has the access group of everyone, like the one that I set, then anyone who had access to the asset manager would then be able to view the form submissions. But I believe that anyone who has access to, anyone who does not have access to that asset in particular would not be able to review the form submission data, even if they had access to the asset manager. Actually, you know what? I am not 100% sure on that, so I'm just going to really quickly see if you know what? I don't have enough time for that because that would involve creating a couple dummy users and doing that. You know what? I'm going to just test that out in my test environment, Chris, and double check that. And then as soon as I know the answer, I'll email that to you directly there. So we've got a couple questions there. So first of all, Ken is asking, what if you had a radio button where the last choice was other? If that was selected, could you make an accompanying text area required? Unfortunately, Ken, I don't believe that's possible. What you would need to do in that situation would be, have your radio buttons that have the choice being other, and then you would have a non-required single line text field underneath that as just a separate element that says, if you selected other, write it here. But I don't believe that there's a way to include logic to say, if it's other, then make this required, but if it's not other, then don't even show it at all. Rich has another question regarding, is there a blind CC option for the form submission? At this point, I don't believe that there is. The only ones that you can do are to and from. I don't think that there is capability to do CCing or blind CCing at this point. I will confirm that, but I'm like 99% sure that there's no BCC option. And Amy, I will include you in the email that I'm sending to Chris as well. Cool beans. Oh, okay. Looks like we have one more question from Mary, and she's asking what's the rough ETA for the 10.4 release. I'm excited to announce that at this point we have the ETA for just 2 short days away. So at this point right now, 10.4 is scheduled to be released this Thursday night, and so hopefully it will be coming very, very soon, and of course I just couldn't wait 2 extra days to show off these new features, so that's why we're doing it a couple days beforehand. But it should be coming to you guys very soon. And actually that I guess brings up a good point. If you are an ESL customer, if you are an enterprise customer of ours as opposed to being a SaaS customer, make sure to email us at support@omniupdate.com to make sure that you can get in line to get your enterprise installation upgraded to 10.4 as well. Because obviously, if you're a SaaS customer, as soon as 10.4 gets released, you'll get 10.4. But for those enterprise customers, it will have to be a scheduled process. So pretty much, if you have any sort of questions about wanting to get your SSM updated, looking at your XSLs, if you're an enterprise customer, you have one place to go. Email us at support.omniupdate.com. Just let us know what your situation is, and we'll be happy to help you out and take everything from there. So if there are any other questions, go ahead and we'll just take 1 or 2 more seconds here. I'm just going to make sure that I'm not missing any questions that people have asked during the session here. And I will, yes, make sure to email pretty much literally everybody. I mean, I'm going to email everyone from the Training Tuesday about information about the date and time picker, as well as whether the new features will work on existing forms. So I will make sure to get everyone that information. And then Chris and Amy, specifically about who has access to the submitted data, I will follow up on those as well. Cool beans. All right, well, at this point, thank you guys so much for all of your attention and all of your great questions. I hope that you guys are as excited about 10.4 as I am and all of the new features. And just think, there's so much coming in this release that we had to devote 2 full Training Tuesdays to cover all of the cool stuff that's coming, in addition to all of the issue resolutions and everything else. We just skimmed the surface of all the cool stuff that we can cover, and we spent a grand total of 2 Training Tuesdays covering all of it. So, there's a jam-packed release with a whole bunch of really exciting stuff coming in this release. So I just want to first of all say thank you, and second of all, we will announce this next month's Training Tuesday. So our next one, like I said before, is going to be held on April 26th, 2016 at our standard 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern start time. And what we're going to do is cover the basics of making templates in OU Campus. If you were here at the conference last month, you might have sat in on my templating class. We're going to try to essentially cram 3 hours of basic template understanding into a nice little Training Tuesday session. So I hope you guys are excited for that. And if you are in on that session, unfortunately there will be no yoga, but if you want to do yoga at your desk, that's okay. So make sure to keep your email inbox tuned. We'll be sending out the OCN invitation for that Training Tuesday here pretty shortly. And of course, later on, you can always visit the OCN or the support site for that registration link as well. So thank you guys once again. I hope this was a great Training Tuesday for you all, and get excited. 10.4 is coming soon. And without further ado, I will say goodbye for now. See you guys next month.